Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of Leadership Matters, a weekly half-hour series aimed at supporting leaders. And I am Dr. Kenroy Burt, your host, excited this evening to engage our guest, Ian Blanchard, business and executive coach. And we're going to talk a lot about leadership this evening. We're going to talk about coaching. We're gonna go, the full mile. So I'm encouraging you to tell a friend, let somebody log in with us, tell somebody that we are on right now. Start a watch party, share it on your page, do something to add value to someone this evening. As we have this discussion, the conversation continues on leadership during this trying time of COVID. So, Ian, welcome to this evening's show.
Kenroy, my pleasure. It's always a pleasure to speak about development, to speak about leadership, and more importantly, for me, it is about sharing, passing on, and learning. So while I'm sharing, I'm sure I'm going to learn as well from you. So looking forward to the conversation.
Fantastic. So, Ian, let's first start at the point of who is Ian Blanchard? Who is he?
So Kenroy, I describe myself in a number of ways. So I say I am a child of God. I am a husband. I am a father. I am a coach. I am a son. I'm a friend. So I describe myself in a number of ways. But for me, I have a core belief system in terms of God and what He's done for me and who I am in Him. I am a husband of one wife. So for me, my relationship with my wife is extremely important to me. And therefore, I have committed that my wife and I will grow old together. So that to me is important. I am the father of two wonderful children, Ayana, who's 25, and Michael, who's 13. So that for me is extremely important in my role in their lives. I'm a business coach. I'm an executive coach. So for me, my purpose on earth is to help people move from potential to performance, or bridge the gap between their potential and their performance. What really for me I'm passionate about is helping people deliver to the world what God has designed in them. And that for me is important. So my background is wide and varied, and I'm sure we'll have a conversation around that. But my background, 25 years in telecommunications, and for me it was just part of a path to me being where I am today, in helping people become the best that they can be, as I become the best that I can be, and I fulfill the purpose of God in my life.
Let's explore a little bit more about that leadership journey. What would have, because sometimes people who are listening, they don't understand that all of the steps that they're making, all of that is part of the process. So let's talk a little bit about your journey towards leadership and now coaching leaders, helping businesses. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So my journey started when I was in actually I started in fourth form. I was a pretty average student, Kenroy, to be honest with you. I was always passionate, but I was passionate about a lot of things. So I was doing a lot of things. My father, I remember when I was going to do my O level, says you was footballing, churching, basketballing, athlete. I was doing a lot of things, right? So my journey started because I was in sports. So I learned the concept of teamwork. I learned the concept of people coming to me because I had a natural ability to kind of engage people. In actual fact, my dad was away when I got the confirmation, and I was in sixth form at the time, and he would not have been amused if I had attempted to leave sixth form and go away. But I actually left sixth form and I went to the UK because 3 weeks after I joined Cable Wireless, I went to the UK. So my journey has taken me from engineering. So I started in engineering.
Mhm.
I then moved into sales and marketing, and then I left Dominica. I'm from Dominica originally. I left Dominica, went to California, Silicon Valley, and that, I mean, literally opened my eyes to just the opportunities out there. I then went to the Cayman Islands, where I spent a couple of years in the Cayman Islands regional office as a regional product manager. Then I had a wonderful opportunity to work in the Middle East for 2.5 years. So I spent 2.5 years in the Arab Republic of Yemen, where I was the general manager of commercial operations and marketing. And this working in a different culture, in a different context, was for me quite powerful and quite resourceful. I then came back into the region and spent a year in Barbados actually. And that was the first time I worked in Barbados, looking at regional and business development for Cable and Wireless. Then I went to Dominica. I ran the Cable and Wireless business there for 2 years as the chief executive. Then to Grenada, and spent 4 years there running the business there through Hurricane Ivan. And I came here to run the transformation program for Cable and Wireless. And when it got to the point where I felt that I couldn't resonate with what was happening, it was time to leave. I remember an old boss of mine saying that when you recognize you can't salute the flag, you must stop walking in front of the flag. So I knew it was time to leave. I knew it was time to walk away. So I left Cable and Wireless, and I knew I wanted to do executive coaching at the time. I didn't think about business coaching. And so I joined, I actually bought the Action Coach franchise for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. And we started the Caribbean Institute of Leadership and Coaching in 2010. And I look back now 11 years later, and it's been a fascinating journey. So that's been my experience in terms of just kind of an overview of my leadership journey.
Yeah, so Ian, as you were talking, and I really purposely did not want to interrupt you because you were really flowing there. But one of the things that I'm catching there is that you've come from a varied experience. Sometimes, as young leaders, persons are listening to us this evening may think that, okay, I want to find my lane and I want to stay in my lane and I want to do. How important is it to embrace the variety of your life, especially towards your destination?
Critical, critical, critical. You are never going to be sure where you should, what lane you should get in unless you explore. So it's important. I did a lot of things. I worked in a number of functional areas. I said to people, I work in every area of the business except finance and HR. Everywhere else I worked. So I got a chance to explore a number of different things. I tried a number of things that didn't quite work. And one thing I want to say, Ken, as we're on this, is we must learn to love what we do until we can do what we love.
I want you to say that
Sometimes
again. I want you to say that again.
we need to learn to love what we do until we can do what we love. Because if we don't love what we do, people are not going to see and want to give us the opportunity. Because if you see someone who is lackluster, no passion, no drive, kind of doing things anyway, why would you want to give them an opportunity?
Exactly.
So one of the things for me is I always showed up. It doesn't matter who it is, where it is, number of people in the room, who is there. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to put my all into it. And that is critical for young leaders to understand. You can't only want to lead, you have to learn to serve. And that is critical.
So you just touched an extremely important point there, especially for those young leaders who are, and I think sometimes they aim for the top and they want to jump a lot of steps. They want to rush straight to the top. There's almost this feeling of entitlement. I deserve to be at the top. Let's discuss with them a little bit more. Give them at least 2 or 3 tips that you would share with them right now. That you would say, listen, young man, young woman, you're listening to me this evening. I found these things to work.
So let me use Chinese bamboo, Kenroy. Chinese bamboo, for the first 5 years of the tree's life, you see nothing above ground.
Mhm.
And in 6 weeks, it grows 60 feet. You see, what young leaders want to do, they want to grow 60 feet,
Mhm.
but they don't want to build the root foundation that will
Yeah.
keep them grounded and secure when they grow 60 feet.
Yeah.
Because if we grow 60 feet without the foundation, we're going to crumble. So
Understood.
my lesson to them is, or the lesson I've learned is, you want to build a foundation of character because you want to make sure you know what you stand for and people can rely on you. You want to build a foundation of being able to deliver on what you promise. You have to build a foundation of being able to do what it is you're asking others to do. And you have to build a foundation of be willing to learn and to continue learning and do not think that you are the fountain of our knowledge. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how long you've been around. We all have things to learn. And when we think we've learned everything, we recognize that in actual fact, there are some things we know absolutely nothing about.
Leaders are lifelong learners. That's one of the things that we must hold in our mind. Leaders are lifelong learners. So, Ian,
Correct?
this has been an extremely interesting period. This thing called COVID. It's been a year now since Barbados has really felt the onslaught of COVID. Uh, how has it been for you as a leader doing what you do? How has it been? Has it caused you to change anything? What are some of the lessons that you have learned out of this period?
Absolutely. I mean, if the people who don't learn to adjust would die.
Mhm.
I don't mean physically die, but your relevance is going to
Yeah.
diminish and is going to disappear. So for me, I had to pivot quite quickly. Um, I mean, fortunately for us, we had already started an online migration.
Okay.
Going back 2 years ago. In January, we had recorded our videos in 2019 and 2020. We did January 2020, we did a few, and then COVID hit. So, but March, we began to begin to see what was happening. So, a couple of things for me is I've recognized that I have to learn to respond. I've learned to
Mhm.
respond. I've learned to recover, and I've learned to reimagine.
Okay, give us those
Because
again. Give us those
so
again.
you gotta respond, you
Respond,
gotta recover,
recover,
and reimagine.
reimagine. So those who are watching, I encourage you to type those. Type those because
Yep.
that's the best way of learning. You write them there. You're gonna respond,
Respond, recover,
recover,
and reimagine.
and reimagine.
So let me
Yeah,
kind of look. So respond is that things are changing around you, so you need to respond appropriately.
yeah.
And appropriateness is interesting because if we spend our time, so let me put it a different way. I am not a Dr. Kenroy. So my daughter is by the way, but I'm not. So therefore, it is not my responsibility to try and figure COVID out. I'm not a medical doctor, right? I appreciate what the doctors are doing, the people on the front line, nurses. My job as a business executive coach is to help business owners and leaders transition.
Yeah.
So my focus, while the the doctors and the medical professional and the political leaders will focus on 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 life, right? I have to focus on livelihoods, right?
Yeah.
So we have to balance both, but the reality is that I had to learn what do I need to do for my business
Hmm.
and what do I need to do to help my clients transition. So part of what I had to do was to begin to look and see, okay, what are the cost elements in my business I had to shift, right? That was critical for me up front.
Yeah.
But I had to understand that I needed to speak truth, but with grace.
Hmm.
Meaning that I had to be considerate of others even while I'm trying to manage my cost.
Understood.
Because if I got rid of all my people, then what's going to happen to my business thereafter? So I had to manage that transition. I had one person who was temporary, who was on a 1 year contract, and the contract had come to an end. It would have been really unwise of me to continue that contract. So I changed that. I had another person who just joined. They were with me what a month and a half, 2 months. So I had to make that decision. But my core people, I said, look, guys, look, my role is to protect you through this, right? It's gonna be tough. We're gonna have a rough ride. We're gonna have to take a hit, every single one of us, as we move through the process, because we know what's gonna happen, or we have a sense of what's gonna happen. But my role is to protect the core, right? So for me, it was extremely important to be honest with them and speak truth, but to do it with grace, right? That is important because you cannot build anything big on your own, Kenroy. It's just impossible. You need
Yeah.
people, right? And there's an old African proverb, I believe, that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So for me, it was important to reassess where I was, reassess where the business was, reassess where my people were and what they needed while we made the transition in terms of transitioning our business, and me being honest with them, upfront with them, continuously conversing with them. So they're not wondering what's going on in my mind. I had to be clear with them. I had to be constantly communicating so they knew exactly what I was thinking, and don't have to be wondering, well, is he going to let us go? I said, look, I have to do these two things, which are these two people who are new and who are. But for you, my role is to protect you and to keep you, and we're gonna do it together.
Yeah. And what you just spoke about is that whole those two main key: communication and empathy. Communication and empathy. Communication and empathy going hand in hand throughout this entire period. And for those executives out there who are listening, I think these are two key elements for us to be able to maintain throughout this entire period. Understanding that not everybody is exactly where you are, and it's a journey together. So Ian, we're looking now at it sometimes it's uncomfortable for me to talk about it, this whole concept of a post-COVID environment, because I don't know if it is going to be ever a post-COVID or if we just have to learn what it means to live with it. But my question to you is, what should leaders then, coming out of this entire experience, position themselves to do? You were mentioning a little bit earlier about the fact that you had to pivot very quickly during the period. But as we transition now out of this period, and we're hoping that even if it isn't a case where we are free of COVID,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
at least we know it is a much better place and we're able to be a lot freer doing business, etc. What
Yeah.
should leaders look to post COVID? What kind of leadership style, and believing leadership will look different? What would it look like to you?
So one of the things for me is each leader. For me, I had to sit down and I had to what I call it my 3 R's plus A, which is review, reflect, record, and adjust. Right.
Mhm.
So I began to review and to kind of look at what am I about? What are we about? Now, in terms of when I look at our ultimate purpose, right? So I'm looking at I'm reviewing what did we start off to do?
Mhm.
And the people that we are looking to serve, have things changed for them? Because for me, business is simply providing a solution to other people. So if you can consistently provide a solution that other people need, then you're going to keep it. You're going to be in business. So for leaders, you got to think about. It depends on where you lead, obviously, but you've got to look at what has changed in the environment
Mhm.
to require you in terms of your personal behavior change.
Right.
Because a lot of times we keep thinking about what our people need to do.
Mhm.
But I don't think we spend enough time thinking about the changes we need to make in our lives.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
one of the things I believe in very, very strongly is that for me to achieve any level of success or anything, I must become that person that is able to sustain it. So therefore, I must understand purpose.
Mhm.
I then have to understand my what I call my potential, and I look at it from the perspective of my gifts and my natural talents, right? So I look at purpose, passion, and potential. I look at them together because if I understand my natural gifts and talents, which is kind of what part of my calling, because I believe your gifts and talents are given to you for your purpose, and then your passion drives you, is the fuel or the jet fuel to
Mhm.
help you use your gifts and talents to fulfill your purpose. So leaders need to stop and ask themselves, what am I about? What is my organization about? What is my department about? And then begin to decide then, based on that, what has changed in the people that we serve?
Right.
What do they require? And do we need to adjust how we provided before? Do we need to adjust how our people who serve with me need to adjust? So before we had leaders who felt I need to see you to believe that you're working.
Yeah.
Well, COVID has proven to us that in actual fact, some people are working harder from home than
Mhm.
they used to work in the office. So in actual
Agree.
fact, if people have good principles and values, they are going to deliver regardless of where they are, right? So leaders need to step back and first evaluate themselves. I mean, I have done a lot of just kind of review of my passion, my purpose, my talents, my gifts, and then began to recognize how do I pivot, right? So something that we had in one of the groups that I run, one person said that we are technology companies rather than, so I'm not a coaching company. I'm a technology company that provides coaching services. And I was like, it's an IT guy, and I was like, wow, Denzel, this is amazing. This is a fantastic thought. So what has happened is the method of delivery, the method of provision, both from our people side and our provision to our the people that we serve, will shift. And we have to begin to, and that's why I like the reimagine. We have to reimagine based on the requirements of our people. So for me, I say the first step is for us to stop and really consider us as leaders. Because the biggest challenge, Kenroy, is that we can be so busy leading other people, we forget to lead ourselves. So for me, it is an important time to really just pause, because when you do so, you're going to be able to make a better, you're going to be able to make better decisions, to be honest with you, and you're going to be better positioned to be able to serve people better, to be able to lead people better, and you're going to feel more fulfilled about the entire process yourself.
So very true. So very true. Solid. Those are extremely solid points. Especially love the fact that we need to lead ourselves better in order to be able to lead others, and that's critical. So Ian, in the midst of this entire period, have you been finding that there's a demand for coaching services out there?
There is. I mean, it's a mix, which is interesting, right? It's a mix. There are some people who's almost afraid to reach out,
Mhm.
which is interesting. But even me as a coach, I need support. I can't ignore the fact that I need support. So I have people around me that support me. That's important. I need people that are above me, who are better than me, that I can reach out to. We tend to think that, no, we have to be mindful of the fact that we need to keep growing. So there is a bigger need out there. Absolutely. People are mentally fatigued. People are concerned, they are worried. Some people have been reaching out, they want to transition. And some people, even though they have not lost their jobs, but because they're realizing that this period has really shown them that they don't like what they do, they're not enjoying what they do. So it's time to pivot. So I have seen a number of people who are looking to kind of just pivot their businesses on one hand, and then people in their careers who are looking to say, look, things are not going the way I want, or I just don't enjoy what I do anymore. And therefore, I want to pivot, I want to transition. So it's been an interesting mix. There are quite a few people who are looking to now open businesses, or may have had little things before and now want to kind of, make it a lot, make it generate enough income to be able to sustain them compared to their day job, so they can make a transition. So there is a lot more out there. But I still think there's a lot of people out there who are afraid to reach out. And listen, you don't have to get a paid coach if you don't want to, but do not suffer in silence. Do not stay and struggle and not reach out to help. Find people you can trust, find people who you know who can help you, find people who have been or is where you want to get to, and reach out, because that's important. Sometimes we can stay and hurt in silence, and that's not healthy. And sometimes we feel when we are hurting, it's time to retreat. In actual fact, that's the wrong thing to do, because that's the worst time for you to do so.
Correct. Even as you speak about it, thinking the greater vagary there is the person who thinks they're okay and they're blindsided and they think they're okay. Everything is all right with me. I don't need any help. I'm able to make it through this entire period. And yet every day they're expected to be assisting someone. I think that is greater challenge there.
You know, you make a point. Years ago, I went to the Dead Sea, and I was able to float in the Dead Sea, and amazing experience, amazing experience. But that taught me something. It taught me that there's two things it taught me. One is that if we only take in and don't give out, we are going to get stifled and we're going to die. And secondly, that we have to understand that if we are not able to understand I pattern it after Christ, because Christ amazed me when he was walking through this crowd and he turned around and he said, "Who touched me?" And everybody, and he said, "What do you mean, who touched you? Everybody's around you." He knew instantly because he says, "Virtue came out of me." And Christ understood what I call his energy leaks. He understood that. So he knew what he needed to replenish.
Yes.
And he knew when energy was leaking out of him. And sometimes we are so busy being busy. We don't understand our energy leaks. And I heard a question maybe a couple of years ago that says, what would your body say to you? What would your mind say to you if it could speak?
Yeah.
So maybe you think you're okay because you're not really being honest with yourself. And because we're busy, we really don't take the time to pause, to stop and reflect and create some thinking time for ourselves and be intellectually honest with ourselves so that we can actually get the help that we need, the support that we need. Or we can just move in a different direction based on just kind of where we are.
Even as you're there talking, Ian, the thought came to mind. You only know you have an oil leak when you park the car. That's the only time
Absolutely.
you know when you have an oil leak. While you're moving and you're shifting and you're busy, you're going, but you don't know that you have an engine problem. Only when you park that car do you realize that you have an oil leak. And I think that it's time sometimes for us to pause and to just park a little bit and do what we need to do. Yeah,
You
sometimes
never
it needs
stop.
for that would be routine maintenance.
Yes. You never stop long enough for things to settle.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
can sometimes we're afraid to do that.
Hmm.
Sometimes we're afraid to be alone with ourselves because we're not quite ready for what our inside wants to tell us. It's interesting. I mean, but you're right. I love the analogy of the oil leak. If you don't park the car for long enough, you're not going to know. And you have to the other thing you have to be is looking at, because you park the car and you just drive off and drive back and drive off and drive back. So you got to be conscious and paying attention, because if you're not, you could actually miss it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ian, this has been a fantastic time with you. I really want to say thank you so very much for dropping by and being a part of this evening's broadcast. I know that there's so many persons out there just based on the value of the conversation that we've had. I'm sure that there are many persons who would have been blessed this evening from this conversation. I want to say thank you so very much. But we usually like to finish this program with just a little something, if Ian were to look back at 20-year-old Ian, 20-year-old Ian, what would Ian say to 20-year-old Ian? Because there's a 20-year-old that's watching right now who wants that advice. What would you say to 20-year-old Ian?
So can I'll say to 20-year-old Ian that every single experience in your life has value. I don't care how painful it is, how difficult it is. Learn to learn from the experience. John Maxwell says sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So I say to myself, Ian, every experience you have, embrace it. Learn, 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 learn. Because if the creator allows you to go through something, there's a purpose in it. So learn. The second thing I would say to myself is the gifts that you have, nurture them. Because each one of us have gifts. I call it a superpower. Nurture those gifts and grow these gifts. It's parable of the talents. For me personally, I did not do enough with some of my natural ability. So I'll say that to myself going back when I was 20. So the other thing last thing I would say, Kenroy, is that, and I've said that over and over the years, is that your attitude will determine your altitude. When you go through experiences, you can decide to get bitter or you can decide to get better. So for me, there are times in my life, if I go back, that I did not learn as much as I could have learned because I allowed the individual who could teach me to distract me from what they could teach me. Because learning from someone you don't like or who have hurt you is difficult. And I've learned that over the years that even people we consider idiots, even people we consider who don't like us, who hate us, have something to teach us. So let's embrace it for what it is, because if we do, we're going to be much better for it.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. We were talking to M. Ian Blanchard, business and executive coach. What a fantastic conversation we had. This has been another episode of Leadership Matters. We talk Leadership Matters simply because leadership matters. It's a weekly half-hour series aimed at supporting leaders, and I am Dr. Ken Roybert, your host. Thank you so very much for joining this evening as we come to the end of this series. This is the end of the series, but we're going to encourage you to look out for something. We are about to launch our coaching and leadership coaching and mentoring circle. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to come into our platform, and we're going to have some coaches and mentors in there who will be able to add value. We're going to discuss a topic, and you can just ask as many questions as you can for an hour or so and be able to add value to you. And the best part about it is it's free of cost. It's free of cost, and we're hoping that it allows you the opportunity to be able to gain enough during that circle moment to be able to seek help if you know that you need that help, and to be able to add value to yourself, as we said, in order to be able to add value to you. Thank you so very much again, and God bless you, and thank you for viewing this series as we prepare ourselves for season 4 coming very soon.